6:30 p.m. local time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us on another edition of Viewpoint, beginning this Tuesday, the 27th of October 2020. It is a pleasure having you again, despite the fact that we have all been crying that the week has not been the best. And in today's edition, we'll be talking issues related to saints, and to talk about this, we are having with us in the studio George Chubonga. He is a doctoral candidate in Catholic theology, and of course he'll be staying with us for about 26 minutes to talk issues concerning saints in Africa as a whole. He'll be accompanied naturally by Mange Venashus. Good evening to you, George, and thank you very much for being part of us in today's edition.
Madam. Thank you for this privilege and honor.
All right, Madam Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Yes. Mange Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Vanessa, good evening, and good evening to our viewers. It's not every day that we have such a guest in the house. It's a privilege having George to tell us something about the sainthood, the Catholic Church, all this. I think that we will learn together with our viewers what it all takes to become a saint and all those things.
Probably. Let us take the first part of the show, the questions. Once more, you are all welcome back. In the first question, is there any reason why Africa has few saints as compared to Western nations? George?
Yes, there is a reason.
Yes. Mange Venashus?
Vanessa, yes, there's a reason.
There is a reason. Good.
There's a reason anyway, to a lesser extent, because I would have been thinking otherwise.
Let me note it down. To a lesser extent. And the recent trends show an increase in the search for African saints. Is it like democratizing the church? George?
No.
No. Mange Venashus?
I think so, yes.
It is, yes. Coming up next, let us take the second part of the show, the debate. Is there any reason why Africa has few saints as compared to Western nations? George, once more, you're welcome, and it is our pleasure having you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And given that probably you have a wide study as far as Catholic theology is concerned, what are some of those reasons why Africa do have less saints as compared to some Western countries?
First of all, for someone to be made a saint in the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, there is a process that has to be carried out. And in this process, a lot of documentation is necessary. A lot of documentations, letters, the person's life, biography, and all that. And if you would bear with me, in Africa, we don't document. You go to a library, you want to learn about somebody, you won't find documentation. We all have oral histories. And that's a problem, because in order for the process of sainthood, we need documentation about the person, what did the person do, how he lived the heroic virtues, the cardinal theological virtues, and that's one of the problems. We don't have documentation.
All right, but first of all, who is a saint?
A saint is somebody who distinguishes, while alive, he distinguishes himself with the heroic virtues. Okay. That is, in fact, we begin with the cardinal virtues. You have fortitude, you have prudence, you have temperance, and you have justice. Those are the cardinal virtues.
All right.
And the theological virtues, you have faith, hope, and charity. And any Christian who lived a life and distinguished himself with these virtues is worthy of becoming a saint. And to conclude, I just had an interview with His Eminence Cardinal Toomey, and he said, George, don't forget to tell them, in order to be a saint, you have to be somebody who has constantly struggled to avoid evil, and has constantly done good. Do good, avoid evil. That's the law.
That's the law
for sainthood.
All right. So Africa has less saints. Why?
Yes. Well, we have many Africans who have distinguished themselves. We have people like Fonlong, which I'm going to talk about, Dr. Bernard Fonlong, who distinguished himself in politics as a true Christian. You have Mrs. Dorothy, who was the founder of the CWA. You have Sango, who was a catechist in Boya, buried together with a priest. So these are saints in the making. These are saints who are saints already. But in order to carry out the process, the ecclesiastical process, it is carried out in a congregation.
All right.
The Vatican is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. When you go to the Vatican, the Holy See, the Pope is the head of state. But it had dicasteries that help the Pope to be able to manage the church. And that's why there's a dicastery there, which is a congregation known as the Congregation for the Cause of Saints.
All right.
So before a person is proclaimed a saint, he has to go through that process. And to go through that process, the local bishop, the local ordinary where the person was born, where the person lives most of his life, begins the process. He has to actually begin the process by investigating, getting the documentation, and forwarding it to this dicastery, this congregation of causes of saints.
Before he's been declared a saint.
Before he's been declared. They have to study, they have to carry out investigation. It's a long process. But, with the lack of documentation, it poses a problem already.
All right. So are there not bishops or people who could actually talk about it?
Actually, they can talk about it. Many have spoken about it and talked about it. But it is a process that has to be carried out. The documentation, we need documents to prove and all that.
To prove that what he has done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, George, for that. Mange, Venus, you equally think, or you say there are some reasons why we have less saints in Africa?
Yes, Vanessa, like George was saying, we had little information about Africans, about the lives of Africans. Remember, we lived in a situation, in an era where people never thought of trying to find out what did he do. It's not like saying that we never had Africans who lived a good life. I remember back in our tradition, in our various traditions, we have what we call ancestors.
Yeah.
Not everybody who dies is an ancestor from an African perspective.
True.
So when people die, and from our own traditional way of doing things, we will judge that this man lived a good life. He can be considered as our ancestors. If you go back to the African tradition, they will tell you that it is not when they are carrying out, sacrifices, they don't sacrifice, or they don't call the name of every child or every member of the family. There are some members of the family that must have done something, I would want to say beneficial, something outstanding, morally upright, that we would call them as our ancestors. They lived, they existed. But we don't know, we cannot really say that this is this. They were not documented as such, like George was saying. Now, to say that they don't have good people in Africa, it would be to say too much. That's why I said yes, to a lesser extent. But another extent that I was thinking that there is a reason why we should have fewer saints in Africa, it was simply because, you measure something. You need to have a scale to measure something. And like George started saying, if you have to measure how good somebody was or how bad somebody was, it is in line with the way he lived his life, she lived her life in relation to these virtues, cardinal virtues and the heroic virtues. Now, the church brought it to us at a certain time, which means it would be from that certain period of time that we could start, trying to measure, this man called Mange Venasius, how did he live his life in relation to justice? How did he live his life in relation to temperament? How did he... All this, once you put them together, you see that we are doing it within a certain time. And that is why we are lagging behind. Because look at the course that George has, that George is into, that he is promoting. I remember when he came up with his write-up that it is high time the local ordinary in Kumbo Diocese comes up with a call, I think so, George, to make sure that they put the course for the beatification that they should launch the course for the beatification of Dr. Bernard von Loon.
Because unless it is launched,
we cannot know. That is why I said that, you see, this is coming at a time. In some countries, immediately somebody died. In less than 10 years, the least a person that we have is one Italian. He's called Carlo Acutis. His beatification course was, he was beatified about 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Because within the period of 10 years, they discovered that his body was intact. That is, people were able to study him and to come out that, this man...
Because he was a saint,
died in 1986. You see, we had little, right up from 1986 till we are already in 2000, before George is coming up with this idea that why not launch a course for... So I think that it is because we had, this information or this scale to study somebody's life at a later age. Whereas before then, in some other civilizations where Christianity would have been there earlier than us, they would have been doing this, and that is why we have so many saints out there in other cultures more than Africa, because it came to Africa late. So I think that is the reason. That's why I said to a lesser extent. That is the reason why in Africa we may have lesser saints, but not to say that there are no saints or that there are few saints in Africa. No, far from that. We may even be surprised that in the long run, Africa may even be, top the chart when it comes to saints, because I believe that African, by nature, by virtue, is a good man.
Like George said, it's because we lack documentation that we have not been able to come up with a good number of saints in Africa.
That is the point.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let us take our second question. Recent trends show an increase in the search for African saints. And the question goes, is it like democratizing the church? George, you think that it is not?
The word democratizing poses a problem for me.
Okay.
The church is not a democracy. That has to be clear. The Roman Catholic Church is not democratic. It's hierarchical. We have the Holy Father, who is the supreme pontiff. We have the cardinals, who are princes. These are those who elect the Pope. Then we have the bishops, who are successors of the Pope. The Pope is a bishop too. Then you have the priests and the deacons, then the lay people, the laity. So the church is not democracy. The church is not democracy. We have to be very clear on that. And if I'm trying to defend the cause of a lay person, Professor Bernard Fonlong, it's not because I'm trying to democratize the church. No. I don't want us to go towards that direction. The church is not democratic. It's not.
So why so much try now to find out why are we not nominating or actually recognizing Africans as saints?
Well, it's not as if the fault should be, first of all, from us who have not been documenting. And as I told you, the local ordinary has in fact, he has a primordial and capital part to play. He's the one who introduces the cause by launching it in the diocese. So my prayer is that our bishops should take this very seriously, should consider documenting. It's late, but it's not late. For example, what I'm doing now is the same documentation. I went to Nigeria, interviewed people who knew Fonlong, and I'm going to write it and publish it as a book. So those are the things that we need to do more. We have saints, as my brother said, but we don't have documentation. Nobody's interested in writing about them, in investigating about them, and that poses a problem. So it's not as if we are trying to democratize.
So could anyone be tapped as a saint then?
Well, not anyone.
Or just particularly from the Catholic Church?
In fact, as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, those who are to be made are Christians, obviously, now. Those who are baptized, who are members of the church.
Okay.
So, in order to do that, we have to go back and investigate and get documentation about people who knew this person. For example, Sango, I have one of my friends, a priest, who is working on him. He has been interviewing people to document his life.
Okay.
That's the problem we have. We don't have books about these people. So we are not trying to democratize the church. We are just trying to do what we ought to have done.
All right.
That is documenting the lives of people who have distinguished themselves in society and in society as true Christians, and making the world know about them and trying to, that's the whole meaning of sainthood.
All right. You stay with us. We continue in the discussion while we get the point of view of Mange Venatius. Mange, you rather think that it is a way of democratizing the church. Why so? Or how?
I like the way George says we should not use the word democratizing it, because the church is not democracy. It's true. Because if the church were to be democratic, we will come to a point where the majority will say that this is no longer a sin.
Exactly.
And I will take it because majority, takes the vote in a democracy. Anyway, but when we're talking about democratizing here, I understood it to mean that is it like Africans are also part of the church?
Yeah.
The church is not only a European kind of thing.
Okay.
You see, it's not only a European kind of thing. When I say democratizing here, I mean to let it be that Africans also have a place here. We are talking about launching carrying out studies to launch the course of Dr. Bernard Fonlong. He is not the only person.
There are many.
We've had somebody like Father Paul Vetzekov, Archbishop Emeritus, or former Archbishop of Bamenda, Archdiocese. His course was launched by his predecessor, Archbishop Cornelius Eswa. Yes. Just a few years that he died, the launch is on
His
course.
was launched 10 years after.
Correct. Now there's another person, Baba Simon.
Yeah,
Baba Simon here, he's from New Bell here, and he's most of his life he lived with the Kyrgyz up north in the far north region, and his own cause have been lost. Now we are talking about Professor Fonlon. Yes. It is now, this is like somebody said it, this is the African face of the church. It is not like saying that everything you think of a saint, we have gone past this age where you used to see Jesus white and devil black, so that the church is white and black Africa. No, it means Africans are also sons and daughters of the church, and the church can be able to accommodate them as well, because what is good in Italy, in Cameroon, in Kumbo, everywhere. So it's not as if only white can live a good life and Africans cannot live a good life. No. So when I look at democratizing the church, yes, it's like let it also, the church, Africans also belong to the church. Yes, and I think that such an initiative like George is doing is to let us also believe, let us know too that it's a challenge. Because he is told us that he has met those who lived with him, those who studied with him, which he's not far from us. No, if he could live a heroic life, he could live a good life, let's put it that way, a good life, it means it's a challenge for you and I too. Because let us not only think that no, it was for the white. No, if we can have somebody from Cameroon, somebody from Kumbo, a Banso man lives a good life too, to live that like Bishop Paul Vezekov, then I can also do it. Then you can also do it. So when I talk of democratizing it, it's like trying to say that no, Africans too have a say. Africans too can contribute in this, in the building of the church. Yes, by the way we live our lives. Yes, it's not like saying that no, we decide on what should be good in.
So I'm happy I get the point now. So the point was not trying to
do democracy.
It's not the fault of the church. The fault is the church is always open.
Yes.
To carry out a cause of beatification. But it is the place of the Africans. We have not been sending people there. Look at the case of Nigeria. They have Blessed Tansi. So Nigeria has done that, and the matters of Uganda. So it's not as if the church is trying to discriminate the Africans. Correct. No, it's that we Africans who have not brought forward our icons.
Their icons. Yes. All right. So now that you have launched the course for Dr. Bernard Fonlon, what is the church? You are still to launch.
No, he's out to research.
You're out to defend
and to put forward this man.
All right. So what is actually the church looking for now to declare him or someone a saint?
So the first thing is the bishop of the local diocese of Kumbo has to launch the event.
Right.
So everything begins with the bishop.
All right.
Not with me.
Not with you.
No, I have no part to it. So my part now is
dig him out.
As a seminarian in Nigeria, because I studied in Nigeria. I was at St. Joseph Major Seminary, Ikorikwene. I was a seminarian on the days of Mamfi. I was sent to Ikorikwene. And it was there that I got to know about Bernard Fonlon. After publishing my books, the rector introduced the books in the seminary and said, George is following the footsteps of Fonlon.
All right.
I went to my room and said, who is Fonlon? So that was the first introduction I heard about Bernard Fonlon. The second was in Owerri, in Nigeria. In fact, I was taken to his classmate, Monsignor Alfonso Aguiazo, who was a classmate to Professor Fonlon. In fact, he went through him. They were together for holidays. Even on the day to the ordination, when he was, in fact, Fonlon was stopped for ordination the morning to the ordination. The morning.
Right.
His family had come from Cameroon. So this classmate of his started talking to him about Fonlon from morning to night. So he was a distinguished man. He was a learned man of moral and spiritual values, a great singer, the flute, and all that. So that was the second time I knew about Fonlon. And the last was in the Vatican itself, when I had an audience with Cardinal Arinze. Cardinal Arinze told me, George, Fonlon was in the seminary. In fact, I came to philosophy when Fonlon was being sent away in 1953. And he visited Fonlon as a minister. When Fonlon was a minister in Yaoundé, he came constantly. So those three instances were the instances that made me to know about Fonlon.
All right. And actually, you're on a mission in Africa.
Yes.
Yes, to research on
I flew from Germany purposely for this. I didn't come for holidays. I flew into Cameroon. The following day, I interviewed Professor Lantum. Professor Lantum is one of those in this country who knows Fonlon in toto. That is true and true. Because they traveled together from Banso to the French Cameroon then. In fact, I had an interview with Professor Lantum. Then I left for Nigeria, went to Bigat, where he studied. and they found all his writings are still there. You know, he was a great writer.
All right, so what should we keep of him from the general perspective to a particular perspective? Because so many of us, looking at his time, many of us just know he was a one-time minister of Cameroon, but we don't actually know him as in person or what he actually did, apart from me learning from you now like this. So what should we keep of him?
In summary, Fonlon was a simple man, true Christian. Fonlon was very easy to be approached. He didn't need to go through so many protocols. He was a simple man. He lived the heroic virtues. He was always going for mass. In fact, I went to Montfebe, the church where he usually went for mass, the monastery. And he was a true Christian, a simple man. Even though he was a minister, he was easy to be approached. He had a simple beetle. He was the driver of his beetle to the office. Even as a professor, even as a professor when he retired, he kept on supervising the thesis of students without collecting any franc.
All right.
This is what we need in this country. People who can do things dedicatedly, not only for money making. Fonlon is an example as a true Christian. And
you've been to Nigeria and carried out some interviews, even in Cameroon with the Cardinal, Christian Toomey. So how was it?
In fact, this morning I met Christian Toomey. He said that he was my student. No, not student, sorry. He was my teacher. Let me not tell you the way around. He was my teacher in Kaikelake. Kikai-Kelaki.
Yes.
Kikai-Kelaki.
Yes. And he used to trek from Shishok to Kikai-Kelaki to teach catechism. And not only that, he was also a teacher to Archbishop Paul Vezokov, may his soul rest in peace, and Father Clement Zé. And so you see that he formed many great by Monsieur Lucas Atang and all that. So it's a very distinguished teacher. And from then he went to seminary. He always came back. And he was always distinguished. In fact, whenever he came back to Kumbo, people thought an angel had come. He was a simple man. He could speak with anybody in a very simple language, even in men speaking in pidgin. All right.
Mangavenashu, sir, I've once heard you, or several times, you quote him. So how do you appreciate him?
Vanessa, I read about him in books, you know, like George was saying, the man wrote extensively. I mean, extensively. When you read his works, you see him challenging. Some people refer to him as someone who lived, you know, decades of years ahead of him. Exactly. Because Fonlon had challenged what we are living today in his books. If you read any book in Cameroon called Abia, you will see that Fonlon, if there are 10 volumes, Fonlon wrote 8.
In fact, he was the editor of the cultural review. It was a cultural review.
Actually.
Bilingual, that has to be noted.
Yes.
English and French.
And you will discover that in all these, remember I read one of his writings and he said, if we are living in a society where we don't give religious studies, you know, the place it deserves in a society, then we should be we should be sure that we are grooming intellectual giants and moral dwarfs. Because to him, he would not understand.
And that statement has a repercussion in our society today.
In his set of anathemas, in his set of anathemas, he actually cried about what we're suffering now in our schools. Because he says, if you are a school teacher who is not able to take care of your words, these are his words, of your students, you should be anathemized. I think I have the word correct.
That's true, anathema.
Yes, because in this is anathemas, it goes from politics to economic life, educational life, all this in a set of anathemas where he was trying to you know, call our attention on bribery and corruption, on steadfastness when it comes to serving. Remember, George says he was a minister whom you could approach without any protocol. Remember, he says he was a minister whom he would even have to talk to you in pidgin to make sure that he communicates with you. Yeah, so when I read about him, what struck me was he was somebody of, you know, a very high IQ. Because when you listen to when you just look at his English language, you see that this man's language is beyond his epoch. Because he was not writing from at the moment. And remember, there was something I learned from George. I don't know whether you are aware of it, where you were saying that Fonlon is one of the first Cameroonian to obtain a doctorate degree in
1961.
Cameroon. Yes. And remember, we were talking about what is happening in Cameroon now. Fonlon was the interpreter in Fumban in 1961. Yes, a conference.
When he came back from Ireland.
Yes. So you really see that this man was somebody who had a stamina in Cameroon, you know.
He loved his country.
Yes. Because when you remember, and I read something, maybe it was satire, somebody was saying that Ahijo decided to put Fonlon out of government because his colleagues, ministers, complained that he was driving an old Beetle. driving an old
driver.
Yes, he was his own driver. They cannot understand to see a minister who never had a driver, a minister who never had this attachment toward a luxurious car. You see, he decided to. What we call a Beetle is this thing called Volkswagen. Yes. So he was the one driving his own car, a minister on his own wheel. So, and you see, according to some ministers, he was. This man is disgracing this ministerial position that we're enjoying. So let us put him aside because he's a disgrace to us. So when I read about him, he has, in fact, a lot of impact on me because I tend to ask a question: where is this kind of man from?
All right.
Yes.
And
that remains with Rita. Yes, you may add some things so that we close.
To add to what you said about the old car, I got another reason today why he was dismissed from the government.
Okay.
From Karatumbi. Karatumbi said, it was during it was when it was Minister of Transport that the Cameroon Airlines was launched.
Yes.
1973. So for long, the French did not like that. The French, he said, no, why Cameroon have a Cameroon Airlines and all that? They wanted to keep on.
Yes.
So it was time for long that it was launched and all that made it to in fact, Kanatubi said he was in Switzerland at the time doing his doctorate. And to exhibit his patriotism, he took a train from Freiburg to Paris in order to take the Cameroon Airlines. He flew with Cameroon Airlines and not with Swiss, which would have been easy from Freiburg, from Geneva, which is the capital.
All right. George Chumbonga, it has been a pleasure having you. I will tell you, I'm not going empty anyway. I've learned a lot.
I've also learned from you.
All right, so wish you the best in your research.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Mange Venashus, it has been a pleasure.
I see the old picture of that.
Yeah, probably I'll raise it towards the end. So many people did not know him, but I think that with the help of our producer, we're going to have an image. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Fonlon Benlad, probably Sokika added to his name.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for today's edition. Hope you learned a lot. And probably to know more, you should go and do more research or documents about those who do good in the world as a whole. Tomorrow we'll be right back, God willing. Do stay tuned and take care. Goodbye.